Hi everyone. This one's a kind of a tutorial I'm going to do about four different ways of tying your leader, or attaching, maybe I should say attaching your leader to your fly line. And there's always a lot of talk about this and different concepts and all kinds of things. So, I'm just going to get on with it. The basic function is you want to make sure that your fly line your energy is running through your fly line, and you want it to transition to your leader as best as possible. And I've talked about this a little bit with using fly lines with certain types of flies and things. But the biggest thing is that you want to make sure that that there isn't like a sharp, where this falls apart here. Okay. Technically, this leader should be about, I think it's 0.025 inches, millimeters. I forgot what it is. It's 0.025, whatever the size of the line. But anyways, this is typically a specific side, but really most importantly, it has to do with stiffness. So you want that to be a nice round loop like that. Okay. And there's been lots of changes in fly lines over the years. And I'm going to show you a couple different ways. Most fly lines, when you get them now, are, okay, I'm going to see if I can make sure I've got all my fly lines here appropriately. Here we go. Most fly lines come now with a loop at the end, okay? And if you've ever seen something with flip pallet, he immediately comes and cuts the ends of this off. Lot of people do. And but this is typically a way to attach leaders. It's nice and quick. It's called a marriage knot or a loop-to-loop attachment. And there is a trick to this, and I want to show you the trick. What you want to do is you take your fly line, the loop on the end of your leader, okay, over the loop on your fly line. You see how I've done that? I put it over it. Then you run your fly line through this. If I can get that through. There we go. Up. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm switching from my regular readers to my super high power leaders. $1 or $1.25 at the dollar store. These are 3.75 or something. So I put that over there, stick this through the loop now. See how that works? Then these two will go together, and it should look almost like a square knot. It's hard to tell. My thing will see, and then that'll tighten up. What that does is that allows you to then remove it really quite easily. The big mistake a beginner will make will be to kind of stick this through like that and then run this through here. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a weird knot that you're never going to get out again. So the trick is take the loop, put it over there, stick this thing through, and then pull it all together. Now, there's people like Flip Pallet and stuff who talk about how this is now a double layer of fly line, and this isn't as see how it's not round. So there's an issue there, and it does make a difference. But it's not going to be life and death. If you have trouble with knots, this might be just the way to go. But you see how that bend is there? Okay, so that's the first way, easiest way. It works, but there's improvements, okay? I'm going to push this off to the side. And the second method is what I showed you before. and if I can find it again, is putting a nail knot at the end of your fly line and then tying a little loop or a perfection loop or something like that on this end, okay? And then doing the marriage knot at that point. And that will give you a little bit smoother transition, or you can tie your whole leader to it. Now, as soon as I say nail knot, everyone runs in fear. And I want to show you, I've got some line here, and I've got some leader here. And basically, you can pick up these nail knot tools. Some of them are just the nail knot tool, and some are on nippers. I think these are, just a couple bucks. And basically how it works is you don't even use your leader at that or your line at that point, but you place your leader in here. I'm going to give myself plenty of string because I never do this right. And you kind of put your thumb on top like that, and then you run this through round 4 or 5 times. Then you stick this through here. Then you come and you get your leader, and you stick that through the little hole there. You kind of hold both of them with your thumb, and then with this hand, I know I'm doing this fast, but I just want to show you basically what happens. And you just tug that off. Ooh, I almost lost it there. And tighten both ends while you pull this and that. And then you can just snip it all off very carefully. I'm using very specialized materials here. And the nail knot, what the nail knot does is the more you pull it, the tighter it becomes. So it just never comes off. But what that gives you is, see, a much more delicate transition. At that point, then you can then take this leader. So if this is your whole leader, okay, and you use it for a while and it starts to get beat up, what I typically do is I will take like a foot or two of this leader, cut it short. See how I've cut this? It's about a foot long. And then I will put my little perfection loop on the end of that. Okay, if I can do a perfection loop still. Okay. It's so hard to do things in front of a camera. But I'll put my little perfection loop on here as tight as I can get it. That's a pretty bad perfection loop, but we'll stick with that. There. So now I have my line with my nail knot there and a perfection loop here. Now once you're into the leader, it sort of doesn't matter any of these things about bending and breaking and stuff. So now I can shorten my leader or leave it the same length pretty much, and I can put my leader on the end of this. So this pretty much stays permanently on my line, while this is where I add my leader on and off to, okay? And it just adds another foot to your leader, okay? So you can adjust your leader that way. Okay, so that's a second way of doing, and probably the classic way of tying your leader on. The third way is another, I find it to be an okay way, and you can buy these little, and I call them Chinese finger torture things. They're sort of a braided thing, and when I was a kid, there were these straw things you'd stick your fingers into. Anyways, basically that's what it is. Usually they come with a little bit of heat shrink tubing sort of stuck on it, or if it doesn't, just get a piece of heat shrink tubing, or you don't even have to do that. And then basically you just stick it on the end of your line. Okay, I can do this. And sometimes, there we go. And you kind of just work it onto your line, you have to kind of snake it on, like you do a little bit, and then you do a little bit. Let's see if I can get this on quick enough today. And they usually are pretty long like this. And the idea is that there's more gripping involved. Now what I do at this point is once I get this all on, and I'm rushing it here, but you understand what I'm doing. What they suggest is, first of all, is try to get that as close as you can. Then they take this heat shrink tubing that they've left on here, and you take that and you slide it over, and you work that down. I'm not going to fight with it right now. This is very, very close, but you basically take this heat shrink tubing and you put the tubing on the end like that, heat shrink it, and then you're fine. What I also do is I coat this with a little bit of, super glue or something, and then that never comes off, and then you attach your leader exactly the same way. This just puts a loop on the end. Again, you get these weird bends sometimes, so you do have to, it's kind of like it's kind of like just putting another loop on the end of the thing. So you're thickening the end of your fly line and creating sort of the same problem you're trying to avoid. Okay, it's just another way of doing it. So that's these little, I forgot what these are even called, just loop connector things. Okay, they work good. I use them. It's not a major thing. The fourth way is kind of so if you really have no life, you can spend your time doing this. And what this is this is something I've done to a few of my lines now. And you take your fly line, get a knife, and I'm going to tip this down just so you can see what the hell I'm doing. And I've started one end of this fly line just as a demonstration. But then you take your fly line and you basically scrape off the plastic coating without cutting the fly line, which can be somewhat of a challenge sometimes. And you keep working this. So this takes a while. You don't want to rush this part. But you take this part. Let's see if I can do it a little bit more. Until you get down to, it's basically that same kind of braided line down at the end. Oop, it's that same kind of braided line down at the end there. Okay, and I started on this side. And then take a pin and kind of see if you can spread that. And I haven't gone very far on this one since it's just a demonstration one. But basically you use a pin to kind of open that up a bit. And then you pull the pin out and you stick your leader material in there. See how well I'm doing this? And this is where being a younger guy helps sometimes. And sometimes you get enough of the plastic off to where it works. So normally I like to take about this much, about maybe 2 inches of the plastic off. And I slide this in there, and it works the same way as these loop-to-loop ones do. And you slide that in there. And then you cover this with basically head cement or super glue or Zap-A Gap or something like that. And then this makes the end of your fly line absolutely smooth like that, so that when you're bringing in your line, it doesn't get stuck in your tip top there. So, and if I did this correctly, this would be a nice smooth loop. I've kind of rushed through it. So that's a fourth way of doing it. So that's 4 different ways of tying your leader onto your fly line. bonus fifth is, and I've done this in a pinch, is I've broken my fly line. I was on this fishing trip up in Canada. I'm in a boat. The guy runs over my fly line, chops my fly line all up, and I just had what's left of my leader and this. And basically, worst comes to worst, you take your leader and your fly line and this is the thin part of my leader. I should have done it thicker. And then you can do a quick surgeon's knot. Double surgeon. Let me see if I stick it through again. Bingo, bada boom, bada bing. And I'll tell you, that'll work every time. If you get in a real jam, okay, that will work, okay? So that's 4 + 1 ways to tie a leader onto your fly line. Okay, I hope that helped. Okay, $1.25.